What if reality wasn't something you attract, but something you tune to? In a world saturated with manifestation formulas and vision boards, most people still find themselves waiting for change that never quite arrives. But maybe it's not about trying harder. Maybe it's about resonating deeper. In this story, we explore a quieter path, one where energy, frequency, and perception are not just ideas, but living mechanics shaping every moment of your experience. So take a breath. Let the noise of the day soften. Wherever you are, late night on the couch, curled up under warm sheets, or walking under a pale sky, this moment is yours. Let's meet here in the stillness between thoughts. Subscribe so we can stay connected. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from? What time is it there right now? Drop it in the comments below. Now imagine this. You're not chasing a dream. You're broadcasting a signal. You're not pulling life in, you're aligning with it. In this gentle quantum journey, we'll explore how the field responds not to what you want, but to who you are. You don't have to force change. You just have to become undeniable to it. You've probably heard it before, that you must visualize your desires. Affirm them aloud, act as if they've already arrived, and wait patiently for the universe to catch up. It's the standard language of manifestation. A formula repeated. So often it's etched into journals, whispered before sleep, programmed into apps, and taught as gospel in personal development circles. And yet, even after all this intention, focus, and effort, many people find themselves quietly wondering, why hasn't it worked for me? They check all the boxes, follow the rituals, speak the words, and still, their reality feels unchanged. This isn't because they're broken, or undisciplined, or unlucky. It's because manifestation was never about trying. It was always about tuning. And tuning doesn't start with desire. It starts with frequency. Let's pause right there, in the space where effort meets frustration. That moment when you've done everything right, but the mirror of reality reflects back something that feels off. This story isn't about what you should do differently. It's about seeing differently. Not looking harder, but softer. Because you are not magnet dragging reality toward you. You are a frequency transmitter sending out a constant signal made not of thoughts alone, but of emotions, nervous system patterns, breath rhythms, and subtle inner postures. You're not calling something to you. You're becoming coherent with what already exists. And coherence is not about force. It's about surrender. It's not loud. It's exact. You don't summon the life you want. You entrain to it. Like a tuning fork placed beside another, you begin to vibrate in harmony with a version of reality that is already humming in the quantum field, waiting to be matched, not convinced, not chased. The universe is not holding anything back from you. It is waiting for your signature to align with the frequency you say you desire, not just with your words, but with your being, with your breath, with your baseline, with the tone of your silent moments. You can't chant your way out of fear. You can't script your way past distrust. You can't journal your way into ease if your body is bracing for disappointment. Most teachings miss this. They teach manifestation like a recipe, step by step, goal-oriented, linear, but frequency is not linear. It's layered. It's intimate. It bypasses logic and listens instead to the total broadcast of your system. And most of us, unknowingly, are still broadcasting lack. Not because we're negative, but because we're conditioned. Conditioned to associate expansion with danger. Conditioned to guard instead of open. Conditioned to anticipate the worst, while wishing for the best. So we say, I am abundant, while our body says, I don't trust this. We say, I am ready for love, while our breath shortens at the thought of being truly seen. We say, I'm calling in peace, but our nervous system still runs a pattern of hypervigilance. And so the field responds not to our intention, but to our frequency. This is not a punishment. It's precision. The field mirrors what is, not what is hoped for. It doesn't respond to the language of longing. It responds to the language of resonance. And resonance can't be faked. It must be chosen, repeated, embodied, moment by moment, thought by thought, breath by breath, until the vibration of who you are becomes the evidence of what you've aligned with. And that shift, it doesn't happen through effort. It happens through remembrance, because deep down, you've always known. There are moments fleeting, but potent when you feel it. That soft click, that internal yes, when something inside, you align so quietly, so completely, that everything else seems to rearrange. A stranger smiles at just the right moment. A door opens that you didn't knock on. An opportunity lands without hustle. These are not flukes. These are green shoots of resonance. And they happen not when you push, but when you match. When you relax into the version of yourself that no longer needs to prove, perform, or persuade the world to change. But here's the friction point. That version of you, the one who breathes deeply, trusts easily, receives openly, that version may feel far away, not because it's unreachable, but because it's unfamiliar. Your body may not yet feel safe in ease. Your system may have learned that control is survival. That joy is fleeting. That rest is lazy. That wanting is dangerous. And so, when you begin to shift into a higher frequency, not in theory, but in yourselves, resistance will come. Old beliefs will surface. Doubts will rise. Your nervous system will whisper warnings. Not because you're failing, but because you're exiting a known vibrational pattern. This is the initiation. The moment most people turn back, they think, I must be doing it wrong. But in truth, this is when you're doing it right. The discomfort is not regression. It's recalibration. When a radio moves from static to signal, there is a crackle, a distortion, a brief confusion. But on the other side is clarity. That clarity doesn't arrive through logic. It arrives through presence. And presence cannot be forced. It can only be allowed. So how do you begin to shift gently, sustainably, deeply? You start with the body. You stop trying to convince your mind and start regulating your nervous system. You begin with the breath, with the mornings when you open your eyes and feel the familiar tension in your chest, with the evenings when you exhale the day and notice the stories replaying in your head. You don't try to overwrite them with positivity. You meet them with neutrality, with observation, with kindness. You begin to build a bridge from survival to safety. Not theoretical safety, but felt, embodied, cellular safety. The kind of safety that says, it is okay to have. It is okay to receive. It is okay to expand. It is okay to be seen and still be safe. And one of the simplest tools for this is joy. Not forced joy. Not gratitude journals filled out like checklists, but actual, lived, small moment joy. The feeling of your hands wrapped around a warm cup, the softness of your favorite blanket, a breeze through an open window, a song that makes your body sway. In those moments, however, brief pause. Anchor. Say to yourself, this is the frequency of the life I desire, not in fantasy. In presence, teach your nervous system that ease is safe, that joy can linger, that expansion is not followed by collapse, that miracles don't require mania. They require coherence. Protect that coherence. Not through control, but through discernment. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be intentional. Think of yourself as a flame in the wind. Guard your spark. Notice what dims it. Which conversations, which environments, which habits tug you back into old frequencies. This is not about judgment. It's about signal clarity. You're not being asked to live in a bubble. You're being asked to tend to your signal like it. matters because it does. It is the most important message you send. Not what you post, not what you speak, but what you are. You might be wondering, how long will it take? How many days of tuning until reality shifts? But that's the old question, the one that comes from the timeline of urgency. In the quantum, there is no timeline. There is only coherence. The moment you stabilize in a new frequency, the field begins to respond, not later, but now. The delay is only in the physical mirror, but the field, it shifts immediately. You'll feel it in tiny synchronicities, a sudden clarity, an unexpected ease, a conversation that lands differently. These are the whispers of a new timeline becoming audible. The question isn't, how long will it take? The question is, can I hold the frequency until the world catches up? That is the practice, not waiting, but stabilizing. Not watching for signs, but becoming the sign. You don't need to seek confirmation. You are the confirmation. You don't need more evidence. You are the evidence. You don't need to attract the future. You need to remember how to live in it now. That is the soft revolution, the quiet revolution, the quantum shift. And this is only the beginning. The bridge between where you are and the life you want is not paved with effort. It's woven with frequency. And frequency doesn't wait for you to be perfect. It simply waits for you to be honest. Honest about the thoughts that echo in the background when you're tired. Honest about the tension you carry in your belly before an important conversation. Honest about the stories you inherited from parents, teachers, systems, those invisible agreements you didn't mean to sign, but did, just by existing inside their gravity. The universe isn't asking you to be flawless. It's asking you to be coherent, to let the signal you send match the signal you desire to receive. That means walking away from the noise, not always physically, but energetically. It means noticing when you're in rooms that speak one frequency while your body is tuned to another. It means recognizing when you betray your own resonance to make others comfortable. It means learning to be so attuned to your own signal that you notice the moment it wavers, and gently, without punishment, you bring yourself back. Not by clenching, not by fixing, but by softening into alignment again. And here's where it gets quiet and powerful. Because the most radical shift you can make is not to yell louder into the void, but to speak softly with the version of you who already lives the life you've been chasing. That version exists, not in fantasy, but in frequency. You don't need to build her. You don't need to invent him. You only need to tune to them. And the way you do that is not through grand declarations. It's through small, repeated choices. What does she believe about safety? What does he believe about time? How does she respond when things go differently than planned? What does he feel in his chest when money enters his bank account? What does she do when silence fills the room and no one is watching? These are the questions that reveal frequency, not goals, not metrics, not affirmations said through gritted teeth. You become by embodying, and embodiment isn't loud. It's practice. Most people don't trust this path because it feels too subtle, too invisible, too slow for their nervous systems, which have been trained to chase, to panic, to problem solve every moment of stillness. But in the quantum, subtlety is speed, coherence is speed, stillness is power. The more aligned you are internally, the less external friction you need to generate outcomes. You've been taught to push, to hustle, to grind your way forward, but in doing so, you reinforce the frequency of separation, of lack, of not yet. And so the field, with perfect accuracy, mirrors back, more not yet. But what happens when you stop pushing? When you stop manipulating the now into becoming the later? What happens when you rest in the awareness that everything you've been chasing is already encoded into the present, just hidden beneath the habits of disbelief? That's when your entire life begins to rearrange without force. Because you are no longer sending the signal of trying. You are sending the signal of being. And being doesn't need to prove itself. Being doesn't ask for permission. Being doesn't need applause or validation. Being simply vibrates. And that vibration is enough to bend timelines. It's enough to make the invisible visible. It's enough to bring the formless into form, not because you demanded it, but because you remembered how to receive it. But what about the void? Ah, yes, the space between the inner shift and the outer reflection. This is where most people falter. They've done the breath work. They've stabilized the new signal for a few days, maybe a week. And then nothing changes, at least not visibly. And so the doubt creeps in. The old narratives resurface. See, they say, it doesn't work for people like you. You'll always have to work twice as hard. Nothing comes easy. You were foolish to think it would be different this time. But here's the secret. The void is not failure. The void is the field recalibrating. It's the echo chamber before the reply. It's the soil rearranging to allow new roots to take hold. It's the silence between the tuning fork and the resonance. And the only real question in the void is, will you continue to broadcast the new signal even when no one is watching? Even when no external reality applauds your effort? Even when the mirror still shows the old scene? This is the test of coherence. Can you stay faithful to your new frequency when the evidence hasn't caught up yet? Can you be the version of yourself who trusts before proof, who walks before the path appears, who embodies the change so fully that the world has no choice but to follow? Because it will dot eventually, the field always responds, but not to timelines, to stability, to clarity, to consistency. This is not punishment. This is integrity. You're not trying to impress the universe. You are becoming legible to it. And clarity in the field is like water on dry earth. It moves quickly, silently, beneath the surface. Until one day, a shoot breaks through. A phone call arrives. A shift in your body settles. A chance encounter happens. You laugh where you used to spiral. You breathe where you used to brace. These moments are sacred. Don't dismiss them as small. Amplify them. Give them attention. Because what you honor expands. This is the law of subtle power. Most people wait for the mountain to move before they celebrate. But the quantum doesn't work that way. It sends feathers before bricks. It whispers before it shouts. And those whispers, if acknowledged, become signals. Signals become shifts. Shifts become avalanches. But you must notice the feather. You must honor the whisper. And yes, resistance will come, not because you're broken, but because the old version of you is dissolving. And the mind doesn't like to dissolve. It prefers the known, even if the known is painful. Your old stories will claw for airtime. They'll disguise themselves as logic. They'll speak in the voice of reason, of practicality, of experience. Be realistic, they'll say. Don't get your hopes up. Stay small, stay predictable, stay safe. This is the moment where you must choose again, not to fight the old stories, but to stop feeding them. Let them pass like clouds. Let them hiss their fear into the wind. But don't climb into the storm. Don't argue with the echo. You are not here to win a debate. You are here to change your signal. And that requires softness, not struggle. It requires choosing, again and again, the feeling of alignment, even when fear is louder, even when doubt dances circles around you. You keep choosing, quietly, lovingly, repeatedly, because repetition rewires reality, not through force, but through familiarity. The more often you embody a new signal, the less your nervous system sees it as a threat, the more it begins to trust joy, to trust ease. To trust that being seen won't end in betrayal, that receiving won't result in punishment, that resting won't result in collapse. You are not weak for needing repetition. You are wise for giving your body time to adjust. Because this is what most people miss. You're not just manifesting outcomes, you're manifesting capacity. You are becoming the vessel that can hold the life you want without breaking under its weight. And that is sacred work. It's not glamorous. It's not Instagrammable. It often happens in silence, in solitude, in the quiet intimacy between you and your breath. It looks like stopping mid-sentence to choose a different emotion. It looks like closing your eyes before responding to a old trigger. It looks like deleting the text you know is rooted in fear. It looks like walking away from gossip, saying no to urgency, letting yourself laugh, letting yourself rest, letting yourself hope again. And every time you do, the field listens, not with ears, but with precision, with elegance, with perfect mathematical symmetry. You become legible to the future that's been waiting for you, not as a reward, but as a match. And in that matching, you'll find that life stops being something to chase and starts becoming something that reflects. It reflects your tone, your posture, your presence. Not instantly, but unavoidably. You are not waiting for change. You are shaping yourself into the version who no longer waits. You are not trying to control the world. You are becoming the frequency. That no longer requires control. And in that becoming, you'll feel a strange lightness, as if the burden you've carried was never yours, as if the weight was just a memory. And maybe it was, because resonance makes everything lighter, and you're getting closer. By now, something inside you has shifted. Maybe it's subtle, maybe it's quiet, but you can feel it, the sense that you are never waiting for something to happen. You are waiting to become someone new, not in a performative way, not in the way of self-improvement that treats you like a problem to fix, but in the soft, magnetic way that says, this is who I was always meant to be, underneath the noise. And with every breath you take in that recognition, your frequency stabilizes a little more. You no longer demand change from the world, you reflect it. You no longer chase alignment, you live in it. But here's where the practice deepens. Because reality, beautiful as it is, will still test your stability. Not out of malice, not to punish, but to confirm the coherence of your new vibration. There will be moments when you encounter the old pattern in a new costume. A delay, a misunderstanding, a surge of emotion. These are not signs of regression. They are opportunities for reinforcement. They are frequency checkpoints. When the echo of your past identity returns and asks, are you still her? Are you still him? Your response is not in words. It's in being, in how you move through the moment, in how your breath responds before your mouth does, in how your shoulders stay down when your mind wants to armor up, in how you witness the fear without feeding it. Every time you hold the new signal in the face of old conditioning, you become more magnetic, not because you're trying, but because you're tuned. You begin to notice that people treat you differently, not because they've changed, but because they're responding to a version of you that now broadcasts safety, presence, and ease. You become less reactive, less urgent, less addicted to external proof. And paradoxically, that's when the proof arrives not as a reward, but as a mirror, a reflection of who you've become. This is the gentle architecture of resonance. It does not demand, it invites. It does not shout, it vibrates. And the universe, wired for symmetry, cannot ignore what is fully embodied. It's not that you force reality to shift. It's that reality can no longer reflect the version of you who no longer exists. But here's a deeper layer still. You begin to realize that you were never trying to manifest things. You are trying to manifest states, not money, but freedom, not love, but safety, not success, but significance. And once you understand that, you stop postponing those states until the outcome arrives. You start choosing them now. You begin to feel safe before the relationship arrives, free before the career shift, significant before the platform. Because you know, the emotion is not a side effect. It's the signal. You begin to reverse engineer your reality, not from goals, but from embodiment. If this version of me already had the life I want, how would she walk into the room? What would he believe about his value? How would they respond to disappointment? You live from that place, not perfectly, but consistently. And the field elegant and immediate responds to that coherence. And yet, sometimes you still wobble because you're human. And being human means forgetting and remembering again and again. You will forget your power. You will slip into old stories. You will believe a lie that echoes from childhood or culture. That's okay. That's part of the design. The point is not to avoid the wobble. It's to shorten the time between forgetting and remembering, between reaction and awareness, between collapse and return. Each time you return faster, softer, with more compassion, you strengthen your field. You stop fearing the dip because you trust your capacity to rise. You stop needing to be high vibe all the time because you understand. That true resonance includes the full emotional spectrum processed, integrated, and transmuted. You no longer bypass. You metabolize. You feel it fully, then release it so the signal remains clean, not flawless, just honest. This is what people mean when they talk about embodied manifestation, not scripted affirmations, not frantic journaling, but the lived practice of aligning your inner landscape with the reality you are calling in. And that practice includes grief, includes stillness, includes boredom. It's not glamorous. It's sacred, because the version of you who can hold abundance without guilt, love without fear, visibility without shrinking, that version is built moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice. So what do you do when it still feels far away? You simplify. You come back to breath, to stillness, to the micro signals you're sending. You start to notice how you walk into rooms, how you speak your name, how you hold your body when no one's looking, how you soothe your nervous system. When doubt arises, you don't try to do more, you tune more. You don't chase what's missing. You reinforce what's real. And slowly, reality bends, not in a dramatic explosion, but in the way the sun bends shadows, the way spring bends into bloom, the way tide erodes stone. Softly, repeatedly, inevitably, you begin to notice that the relationships around you shift, not because people change, but because your boundaries do, your expectations do. Your baseline no longer tolerates certain frequencies, and so you quietly, without fanfare, stop engaging. You no longer beg for attention. You no longer over-explain. You simply vibrate in a new octave and let resonance sort the rest. This is the true secret of frequency. It does the heavy lifting for you. You don't need to convince the universe of your readiness. You need to convince your nervous system. And the way you do that is by proving again and again that it is safe to have what you've been seeking. Safe to hold it. Safe to keep it. Safe to let it change you, because it will. And you are ready, even if a part of you still doubts it. Even if your hands still shake. Even if you whisper, "I'm not sure," while choosing anyway. That choice matters. Every time you choose the new signal, even in a whisper, you amplify it. You teach the field, "This is who I am now." You teach yourselves, "This is our new home." You teach time, "We are not waiting anymore." And eventually, the outer world catches up, not because you forced it, but because you became undeniable to it. And when it does, you won't feel surprised. You'll feel familiar, because you've already been living it. Not in fantasy, but in frequency. The money arrives, and your body says, "Of course." The love deepens, and your breath says, "Naturally." The opportunity appears, and your nervous system says, "We've already been here." And now we arrive at the softest part of all, not the climax, but the calm. Not the breakthrough, but the being that remains once the noise has settled. You've tuned and tuned. You've caught your breath through the wobble. You've chosen. Resonance when fear came to test your volume. And something in your field has changed not loudly, but irreversibly. You are no longer the person who waits for evidence. You are the evidence, not because of what has shown up around you, but because of who has emerged within you. This is the moment where frequency becomes foundation. It no longer feels like an effort to stay in alignment. It feels like home. The pull to self-abandon begins to weaken. The gravitational field of old patterns loses mass. You start to feel solid in places that once shook like glass. A rejection no longer means collapse. A delay no longer feels like doom. You don't interpret a quiet season as failure. You interpret it as refinement. You meet the mirror without begging it to hurry. You understand now, it will catch up, and when it does, it will not be a surprise. It will be a match. That is the elegance of quantum embodiment. It arrives not with drama, but with familiarity. Your new life doesn't knock. You've already been living in its walls. It simply becomes visible. It crystallizes. And when it does, you do not shout, "Finally." You smile quietly, because your nervous system has already rehearsed this timeline so many times, not in fantasy, but in frequency, that it recognizes the sensation before the details ever form. This is why trust has always been the real work, not surface-level belief, but cellular trust. The kind of trust that doesn't need permission from the outside world to feel real. The kind of trust that allows you to rest even when the bank account is low, or the calls aren't returned, or the body aches because you know you are not behind. You are in rhythm. And rhythm is a better compass than logic. It knows when to surge, when to still, when to speak, when to stay silent. You are no longer plotting your reality like a strategy map. You are listening to it like music, and in doing so, you discover something most people never realize, that the path of least resistance is not passive. It is attuned. That softness is not weakness. It is signal clarity. That surrender is not giving up. It is plugging in. You are no longer trying to bend reality to your will. You are shaping your will to match reality's highest current. You are no longer forcing the door open. You are standing where the door must swing wide, because your presence has become the key. And the universe? It listens to presence, not performance. It answers identity, not intention alone. This is the deeper mystery of the quantum field. It is not an external force to manipulate. It is a mirror of your deepest pattern, your most consistent tone, your embodied truth. And the more intimate your relationship with your own signal becomes, the less confused you are by delays, detours, or disruptions. You begin to understand that everything is working not in spite of the challenge, but through it, because each challenge is an opportunity to choose differently, to stay regulated when you used to spiral, to remain open when you used to armor, to speak kindly to yourself when you used to narrate collapse. These moments are the real magic, not the big leaps, not the sudden windfalls, but the quiet, repeated decision to remain in resonance with the life you've already chosen. To keep breathing in alignment when your ego is begging to control. And then something wild begins to happen. People start to treat you like a different person. They can't name it, but they feel it. The way you move, the way you listen, the way you no longer grasp, the way your boundaries are no longer declarations. They're simply woven into your tone. You're not just creating outcomes anymore. You're creating atmospheres, energetic invitations, silent maps that others follow without needing directions. Your field becomes a compass, and those who match it rise to meet it. But here's where the real responsibility emerges, not the burden, but the reverence. Because when you live at this level of coherence, you realize that you're not only shaping your own life, you're shaping timelines for your lineage, for your community, for the collective field. You are breaking patterns not just in your mind, but in your DNA. You are signaling to future generations. It is safe to trust, safe to rest, safe to create from joy, not trauma, safe to expand without collapse. This is not just personal work. It is sacred, systemic restoration. And you are doing it every time you choose to stay in your body. Every time you choose breath over reactivity. Every time you choose love, not the sugary kind, but the clear, rooted kind that says, I am willing to meet this moment without distortion. And it's not always easy. There will still be days where the old static tries to rise. Days where your thoughts feel foggy and your clarity feels far. Days when the mirror takes a little longer to reflect back your new tone. But on those days, you don't fall for the old trap. You don't spiral into self-blame. You anchor deeper. You return to the basics. Water, rest, stillness, movement, laughter. You remind your system, we've come too far to forget now. Even in the dip, you radiate a new kind of integrity. Because you are no longer attached to perfect outcomes. You're devoted to authentic presence. And that devotion is magnetic. It makes life softer, more surreal, more responsive. The things that once felt like mountains become paper walls. The things that once felt impossible feel inevitable. Not because the world changed overnight, but because your signal became so stable that the world had to change in response. You start to feel time differently. You don't chase it. You partner with it. You realize that your future is not waiting to be summoned. It's waiting to be received. And that reception is not a moment. It's a mode, a posture, a frequency that says, I trust the intelligence of now. And now, you are that intelligence. You are no longer seeking the wisdom. You are living it. You don't need more books, more methods, more signs. You are the sign. Your life is the transmission. Your field is the invitation. Your breath is the broadcast. And everything you've been calling in, it's already arriving not as an answer, but as a reflection. So you stop rushing. You stop explaining. You stop adjusting your volume for rooms that were never built to hold your resonance. You let your frequency speak louder than your words. You let your nervous system become your oracle. You let stillness become your most powerful signal. And slowly, inevitably, beautifully, your reality changes. Not because you shouted into the void, but because you finally remembered how to hum in harmony with it. This is how reality confirms what you've already embodied. This is how the field responds, not with applause, but with symmetry. This is how you become the future, not by attracting it, but by remembering it. By now, your frequency is no longer something you practice. It is something you are, not because you mastered it, but because you stopped abandoning it. You are no longer chasing alignment, you are resting in it, weaving it into the ordinary moments, into the pauses between your choices, into the space behind your words. You walk into the day not with force, but with fluidity. The question isn't, will it work anymore? The question is softer, subtler. Am I still myself? Because the true signal, the one that shapes reality, isn't loud. It's consistent, and consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means presence. The kind of presence that stays in the body when the plan changes. that breathes deeper when others contract, that doesn't flinch when the old pattern knocks on. The door dressed in new language. You recognize it now, not as a threat, but as a returning echo, one you've heard before and no longer believe. Your nervous system remains steady, your eyes stay soft, and in that moment, the loop dissolves, not because you resisted it, but because you out-resonated it. This is what it means to outgrow, without effort, to no longer vibrate at the level of the struggle. The situation may return, but your response won't. The world may stay the same for a while, but your inner climate is different now. Clearer, warmer, safer, and that safety isn't something you wait for, it's something you offer. It radiates outward from your presence like heat from a candle, and people feel it. Without knowing why, they soften around you. Their words become gentler. Their chaos quiets. Your frequency creates coherence. This is when you realize you were never just manifesting a reality. You were stabilizing an ecosystem, one that lives not only inside you, but also around you. Your home changes. Your relationships shift. Your routines evolve, not because you optimized them, but because they no longer match your new tone. You begin to magnetize differently, not through effort, but through environment. Your outer world starts to rearrange itself to reflect the integrity of your signal. That job, it begins to feel small. That conversation, it finally opens. That opportunity, it no longer feels out of reach. It feels inevitable. And yet, none of this arrives with trumpets. It comes in like a tide, quiet, steady, irrefutable. It doesn't ask for applause. It just fills the space. You may wake up one morning and realize the struggle you once obsessed over hasn't crossed your mind in weeks. That worry? Gone. That spiral? Disarmed. Not because you fought it, but because you stopped being a vibrational match to it. That's the strange grace of coherence. You don't defeat the old reality. You simply vibrate beyond its reach. And what replaces it is not fantasy. It's deeper presence. A kind of rootedness that cannot be faked. You become harder to shake, but softer to be around. More stable, yet more open. Your dreams stop feeling distant. Not because they've all arrived, but because you no longer live in the frequency of not yet. You live inside the now of possibility. You no longer demand that the universe hurry. You trust that it's on time because you're no longer lagging behind your own truth. This is the turning point most people never reach, not because it's far, but because it's unfamiliar. Because this level of peace feels suspicious to a system used to stress. Because this level of ease feels too quiet for a mind used to noise. But you know better now. You know that peace is not emptiness. It's presence. That ease is not laziness. It's alignment. That joy is not a luxury. It's your natural broadcast when survival isn't running the show. You're beginning to move differently through time. Not rushed, not slow, but right on cue. You notice synchronicities daily, not as signs to obsess over, but as gentle nods that you are in dialogue with a universe that is no longer a stranger. You are not waiting for answers. You are walking with them. Each choice you make feels clearer, less about pleasing others or proving worth, and more about resonance. Does this feel like truth? Does this feel like home? And the more you live this way, the less noise you need. You stop needing motivation. You're moved by momentum. You stop seeking guidance outside yourself every hour. You begin to trust your own signal. You become your own calibration tool. And as you trust yourself more, the universe matches that trust. Faster, cleaner, no resistance. Less, why isn't it working? And more, how deeply can I enjoy what is? Eventually, things that once felt like battles become backgrounds. The drama loses its grip. The pain turns into wisdom. You stop trying to win arguments with your past. You simply leave them unspoken. You stop asking for closure from old versions of yourself. You offer compassion instead. You stop chasing clarity from chaos. You realize clarity doesn't come from figuring things out. It comes from tuning in and staying tuned. And in that steady tuning, you begin to experience reality differently. The way your body rests in public spaces. The way you exhale around people who once made you contract. The way your voice flows when you're no longer trying to say it right, just trying to say it real. The world begins to bend around the shape you've chosen to embody. Not because it's finally listening, but because you've become loud in a language it never could ignore. Frequency. You walk into rooms and feel the tone before a word is spoken. You exit places that pull you into old vibrations without guilt. You're not arrogant about your resonance. You're reverent with it. You guard it not with defense, but with discernment. Like a garden, it now grows something sacred. You prune what doesn't serve, water what does, and trust that what blooms will be more than beautiful. It will be aligned, because you are no longer manifesting from a place of fixing. You're creating from a place of remembering. And what you're remembering is this: you were never meant to become worthy. You were meant to become whole. You were never meant to perform worthiness to earn the universe's attention. You were meant to stabilize in your truth so fully that the universe couldn't help but respond. And it has. Not just with things, but with peace, with clarity, with capacity, with congruence. You now carry your desired reality inside your presence, and everything around you feels it. You are no longer chasing change. You are creating a field where change becomes inevitable. Not fast, not loud, but cellular, sovereign, silent. And when fear comes now, you don't see it as sabotage. You see it as signal distortion, a frequency flare that simply needs tuning. You pause. You breathe. You remember. You don't panic. You regulate. You don't beg. You return. Because you trust that every version of yourself, past, present, and future, is watching, waiting, learning from how you choose now. You are the bridge between your timelines. You are the voice between the patterns. You are the breath that makes the invisible real. You've stopped trying to attract what you want. You've become what you are. And now the field listens not with hesitation, but with immediacy. Because your frequency is not temporary anymore. It is who you are. And now you've crossed a threshold that no one saw but everything felt. You didn't leap. You didn't scream. You didn't declare it with fireworks. But the field knows, because something fundamental has changed. You are no longer asking life to meet you halfway. You are meeting it completely unarmored, unwound, unwavering. The signal you send now is not a question. It's not even a statement. It's a presence, a resonance, a coherence that makes negotiation unnecessary. Reality does not argue with truth. It simply reflects it. This is embodiment. Not the kind that needs external proof, but the kind that alters the way space holds you. The kind that shifts how people respond to your silence. The kind that changes the way time opens its hands to you. The more you relax into this signal, not with smugness, but with surrender, the more you realize you were never waiting for the future. You were waiting to allow it to arrive through your frequency. You were waiting to stop guarding your brilliance. Waiting to stop managing other people's perceptions. Waiting to stop deferring ease until you felt worthy. But ease is not a reward. It's a natural consequence of coherence. And coherence isn't about controlling every thought, perfectly curating every moment. It's about returning again and again to the felt truth that you are safe to hold what you used to chase. Safe to trust your signal, even when nothing looks different yet. Safe to pause, not because you're lazy, but because you know the field is organizing on your behalf, because you've stopped outsourcing your calibration to external signs. You're not checking your bank account to decide how abundant you feel. You're not measuring your worth by whether they reply. You're not building your trust around whether today went your way. Your nervous system has anchored into a deeper rhythm, one that doesn't rise and fall with the day's events, one that listens for alignment more than applause, one that doesn't flinch when the mirror lags. This is the beginning of quantum maturity, where you no longer flail when old emotions surface. You hold them like waves, knowing they aren't regressions, they're releases. You stop thinking, what did I do wrong to attract this? You start asking, what part of me is still broadcasting this? And how gently can I meet it? You stop trying to police every vibration and start learning to trust the intelligence of your own energy. You stop asking for shortcuts. You begin honoring the slow rewiring of everything your body used to believe about love, safety, power, and receiving. You realize now you are never trying to create a life. You are always becoming a frequency stable enough to let life reflect your wholeness. And now, the world around you listens differently. You speak less, but your energy says more. You don't need to explain your boundaries. They're etched into the tone of your presence. You don't need to prove your value. You embody it with every regulated breath. You don't have to force your vision into the world. It flows through you, shaping the path in real time. There is no longer a delay between your vibration and your environment. What once took months to arrive now shows up with uncanny ease. Not because you've hacked the system, but because you've harmonized with it. And the beauty is, it's not even about the stuff anymore. The money, the titles, the milestones. They come, yes, but they no longer feel like salvation. They feel like symmetry. And that symmetry doesn't shock you. It doesn't thrill you. It simply feels accurate, like the outer world finally caught up to the tone you've been holding, moment by moment, even in the quietest nights. This is the soft revolution, the peaceful rebellion, the refusal to broadcast from fear, the radical act of staying present in a world addicted to projection. You are no longer seduced by the noise. You've tuned to a different frequency, one that speaks in symbols, in sensations, in subtle confirmations. And in that space, you find joy again, not as a goal, but as your most natural state when you are not bracing against life. You begin to see others differently too. Their chaos no longer destabilizes you. Their urgency no longer drags you. You don't absorb their projections, you see through them, gently. You understand that everyone is tuning, whether they know it or not. And so you stop preaching. You stop convincing. You become the signal. You let your coherence teach, silently. You let your joy ripple without needing justification. And perhaps most beautifully, you no longer feel rushed. Time stretches. Space responds. You're not hustling for alignment, you are alignment. You're not scripting to manifest, you are manifesting just by being. You're not exhausting yourself to maintain the signal. You've become the signal. The field doesn't need reminders anymore. It reads your energy like a signature written in gold. And the signature says, this one no longer doubts. This one no longer splits. This one remembers. Remembering was always the point. You are never disconnected, only distracted. You are never unworthy, only untuned. You were never waiting for something. You were always waiting for this feeling, this frequency, this depth of peace that arises when you no longer need to perform safety. You live in it. And from that living, the entire fabric of reality reorganizes around you, not because you forced it, but because you became undeniable to it. This is how change happens now. Not through willpower, but through clarity. Not by reacting to life, but by attuning to truth, your truth. The one that doesn't oscillate with opinion. The one that doesn't collapse in the face of someone else's disbelief. The one that doesn't shrink just to be accepted, because you no longer abandon your frequency to keep a room calm. You hold your frequency to invite the room into coherence. You are not the echo anymore. You are the tone. And that tone? It opens doors you didn't knock on. It writes invitations you didn't send. It heals spaces you didn't touch. It liberates others just by standing in your field. Not because you're better, but because you've become real, rooted, resonant. Remember, and now, the final piece clicks into place, not outside, but inside. You no longer need to manipulate energy. You are energy. You no longer chase insight. You are insight. You no longer wait for a new timeline. You walk in it. You breathe in it. You speak in it, and so reality doesn't respond to your effort anymore. It responds to your being, because being is the loudest signal there is. And now, as your breath settles and your awareness softens, you realize that you're no longer reaching outward for signs. You are the signal that everything else aligns to. Nothing dramatic needs to happen next. Nothing urgent needs fixing. You've remembered that your very presence carries the architecture of the future you once thought was distant. There is peace in that. There is power in that. And there is a quiet joy in knowing you don't need to explain your frequency for it to work. You only need to live it. Let this moment mark something sacred, the point where you stopped chasing timelines and began embodying them. No need to prove. No need to rush. Just trust the rhythm you now move in. Trust the life that's already listening. And as this story fades into stillness, let it echo within you. You don't need to attract what's meant for you. You are already resonating with it. Subscribe to our channel so we can meet again next time. And if this journey spoke to something in you, know that other stories are waiting, gentle reminders, quiet awakenings, and resonant truths, just like this one.